Good afternoon and welcome to The Pulse. We're live on DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 125 across all our social media handles. We're joining you on TV. Coming up in the next few hours this afternoon, over half of the procurement irregularities recorded in 2023 came from the Education Ministry. We have details as the ministry features in all irregularity types uncovered by the Auditor General. Also coming up, CETAG strike unlikely to end anytime soon as striking tutors boycott meetings scheduled to decide the future of the strike. We have more as students remain in dilemma as the academic progress stalls. And later in the bulletin, the election season is here now, and your election headquarters, we're bringing you a build-up to the NDC campaign launch set to take place in Tamale tomorrow. The Pulse is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, affordable safe sanitation for all. We're live on DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 125, on our social media handles. Follow us on YouTube. We're Joy News on TV. We're also live on myjoyonline.com. My name is Faustina Savo. Take a seat. You're my guests. Thanks for staying with us. Now, more than half of the procurement irregularities recorded in the 2023 Auditor General's report on public accounts of Ghana came from the Education Ministry. Now, out of 53.7 million Ghana cedis recorded in procurement irregularities, as many as 29.6 million Ghana cedis, representing 55% of all irregularities, stemmed from the Education Ministry. On your screens now is a breakdown of what we have from the Auditor General's report. Now, let's get more on that. We'll also be having a conversation on this as we look at what we are going to do moving forward. So we'll get to that shortly. We know that defiant and resolute until all demands are met. That's the posture of members of the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, CETAG, who have been on strike since June 14, demanding better conditions of service, including the implementation of arbitral awards given by the National Labour Commission. Now, there's currently a salary freeze on the members based on GTEC's directive. Now, this has, however, not cowed the teachers to back down. They say they can even forfeit 2 more months of their salary if that is what it would take to make them get their due demands. Now, we know that a meeting this morning to decide the next line of action after an agreement between leadership and the Education Ministry was called off. Now, this was because CETAG did not see any need to put down their signature from the Finance Ministry to seal the agreement, a situation they say does not signify collective agreement. While we know that the students who are bearing the brunt of this action say they are also at a loss on what to do with their academic journey. You're watching The Pulse. We'll be back. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. Now, defiant and resolute until all demands are met. That's the posture of members of the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, who have been on strike since June 14, demanding better conditions of service, including the implementation of an arbitral awards given by the National Labour Commission. Now, there's currently a salary freeze on the members based on GTEC's directive. Now, this has, however, not cowed the teachers to back down. They say they can even forfeit 2 more months of their salary if that is what it will take to get them their dues. Now, a meeting, we know this morning, to decide the next line of action after an agreement between leadership and the Education Ministry was called off. This is because CETAG did not see any signature from the Finance Ministry to seal the agreement. We know that this is a situation, they say, does not signify a collective agreement. The students who are bearing the brunt of this action say they're also at a loss on what to do with their academic journey. Let's listen to them. We'll be back.
We are stranded and at a confused state as I speak. The CETAG and the government should reach a resolution as soon as possible. And then I am actually in particular with the government. This is not a first issue that they are bringing up. It's an issue over years. So I am thinking that the government should act swift on the matter, because the tutors, what they are demanding for, in a way, is due them.
I'm expecting that they call off the strike and come to school and come and continue their service to the examination and help us with what we are supposed to do, because the examination time is coming on right now. So if they don't come early, it will be difficult for us to pass our exams.
The strike has really affected us. I'm not the only person, almost all of us. It has affected us negatively. Ever since we came to school, there has not been any teaching or anything like that. So it's really affecting us a lot. I was staying on campus, like sometimes you need a guide of your teacher to be able to understand what you are studying. But we just go and read with your own understanding, which is not actually helping or improving our studies on campus.
You heard there some tertiary students speaking to Joy News expressing their frustration as CETAG strike continues unabated in blatant disregard of CETAG's directive. Joining us now with more on this is Fidelis Kamai. He joins us with more on this. He's a representative from CETAG. We also have Austin Game, he's a labor expert. I'll start with you, Fidelis. Give me a breakdown. You've been in various meetings with the Labour Commission, CETAG as well. What's the update with your negotiation with government as regards to your demands?
Good afternoon to you and your cherished viewers. I want to take this opportunity to also send my greetings to our national executives, council members, and all CETAG members across the 46 colleges of education in Ghana. Some point of correction, we are no longer in negotiation. What is left with government to enforce, or let's say, comply with the arbitral awards. And that is where we are now.
GTEC was categorical when they told you to return to the classrooms, else forfeit your salaries. Some members have already forfeited their July salaries as we speak, but you're still on the strike. Why?
Because the objective for embarking on the strike has not been met. So it will be a fruitless fight for us to say that we are calling off strike because our July salaries have not been paid.
But let's look at the concerns you initially raised. You have been in meetings. You tell me that you have already concluded negotiations. What has government agreed to do?
On Wednesday, we met with the Minister for Education and other key stakeholders. And there were a lot of proposals that came to our table in an attempt to find lasting solution to the problem at hand. So we waited that they would sign the agreement, more or less, so that we table that agreement at our council meeting. Then we'll deliberate on the issues. Then at the end of the day, a decision will be taken with regards to the proposal that has been made by government. But as we speak now, that document has not been signed yet, so we don't have it. Because of that, our meeting today did not come on.
We have not had the opportunity to see this agreement. So walk us through some of the key things, the details in this agreement.
Like we have been consistently saying, because people are not aware of what is on the table, it will be premature for us to bring these things to the media for our people to hear it outside. So for now, let them bring it. We look at it at council. Then whatever decision we take, we'll communicate to the media, and then everybody will hear about it.
But then let's look at the students. They are bearing the brunt of this strike, and it's been ongoing for weeks now. If government is showing some sort of commitment to get your concerns resolved, why don't you return to the classroom?
Like I said, if the government was showing commitment, from Wednesday till today, we would have been ready. The lackadaisical attitude should tell you that they're trying to deceive us.
Explain what you mean by lackadaisical attitude. You tell me that they have concluded negotiations with you and the agreement has been drafted. So it shows some level of commitment, doesn't it?
So what I'm trying to say is that you are committed to solving our issues. We had a meeting on Wednesday, and today is Friday. It's past midday. We are entering into the weekend. What is preventing you from appending signatures and presenting those documents to us, if indeed you have the student at heart?
For some students, this strike is affecting their academics because you've been off for weeks, they're struggling to study. Let's get the signature probably by the end of the week. Would you return to the classrooms?
Like I said, that decision is of council. I cannot pronounce on that. Unless we have it, table it, discuss it, then a decision will be taken.
But based on what you're telling me, it's clear that even with government's signature on that agreement, it is not enough to get you back to the classroom. Is that what you're saying? Because if the council will then have to meet...
I have not said so.
Okay, but you're telling me the council will then have to meet. Isn't that?
Yes, council will have to meet and look at it. We look at the pros and the cons, and then how best that particular proposal can be achieved within the shortest possible time. As we have been saying, this award was given since May 2nd, 2023, and the implementation was supposed to start from January 2023. How many months are we in now in arrears?
Okay, Fidelis, stay with me. Let me bring in a labor expert, Austin Game. You've been monitoring the space. You've seen the back and forth. Already, GTEC is working around the clock to get CETAG members to return to the classroom. They have frozen the July salaries of the workers. They say that they are not returning to the classroom. They're willing to forfeit their August salary. This back and forth between Labour and NLC has been ongoing for a long time. What do you propose we do moving forward?
Thank you, my sister. I hope and pray that you hear me because I'm in traffic and in contact with you. Now, if you can hear me, the reality is that all employers must learn to know how that their workers see them, how the leadership of the union see them. They are heavily laden with perception. They perceive the employer to be a dishonest employer, and therefore they have no desire to open up themselves in a way that may cause them to suffer the second time. From the information provided, scanty as it may be, there is some agreement of a kind. But because of the level of perception sitting between the two parties, they want to be sure that the employer will append his signature to whatever the agreement is to enable them lay it before their council and members who have agreed to suffer the consequences of, whatever is between the two parties until they have that guarantee that they have settled and they've all accepted and they are going back without any blame game upon their leaders anymore.
Now, what do you propose the posture of CETAG should be moving forward?
These are people who are not traditionally, they are teachers, they want to be focused, the employer should sign whatever they laid before them last Wednesday. They should sign it if they have that guarantee that that is what they have offered them, and they have in principle accepted to work with that by way of laying it before their members. They cannot just go speaking about the matter to their members without the real agreement being laid before them, signed onto by both parties. I think that is where they are now. So I will urge the employer, government to sign this agreement, provided that what they have laid before them, what they've offered them, is acceptable to both parties. And that would be a solution to the problem. By Monday, hopefully, they'll be more than willing to go back to work. I have pleaded with them several times to go back to work, but because of the deep-seated perception they harbor against the employer, they will not even take, people like us, our word. That's just about it.
Let me bring in back Fidelis to give us some clarity as to some of the details of this agreement, because I'm very much interested in that, even though you don't want to give us details about it. Fidelis, one of the key things you said was part of your demands, at least by the letter you released before you embarked on your strike, was that failure of your employer to comply with National Labour Commission decision and orders given by compulsory arbitration awards agreed by parties as follows. And so you give details. You say, A, an order for the payment of 1 month's salary to each entitled member of CETAG as compensation for additional duty performed in 2022. B, you say in order that the agreed rates of allowances payable to public universities be applied to deserving members of CETAG. And C, you say in order, an order that the implementation of the completed staff audit exercise shall commence from the 1st of January 2023. Confirm for me if these details are in the agreement which the Ministry of Finance and the Labour Commission is yet to sign.
These are the issues that were brought to the table. But if you look at the first and second one, they are not anything that will take time in implementing. For example, if 1 month arrears, 1 month salary are supposed to pay this, we don't see it to be any huge amount that cannot be done within the shortest possible time. For you to give a very long timeline that is going to be achieved. Also, the top up, how much is it? About 1,000 cities. How much is that? And how many are we? We are about 2,000 in number. So it's not that much, you see. So we expected to see a certain critical commitment by way of maybe payment. You can handle 2 or 3 of the issues, pay, and then the rest we can have what you call a roadmap or certain agreements, then we look at them.
And they haven't shown that commitment? No timelines have been given?
I don't want to go into details. What I want to say is that let them sign, bring the document, our council will look at it and take a decision from there.
Okay, confirm for me if they've given you any timelines to at least fulfill your first and second request.
Timelines have been given, but like I said, I don't want to disclose this to the media.
We seem to be losing connection to you, Fidelis. Okay, position rightly and please make your point.
I didn't get you.
We seem to be losing you, so please position rightly and make your point. You were telling us that timelines have indeed been given. However, please complete.
Yeah, so however, we want to table this before our council. Then when they take a decision, we'll let the public and the general, everybody know about it.
Let me bring back Austin Game, because indeed he has confirmed to us that some sort of agreement has been met with regards to timelines as to when government will fulfill some of the key concerns they have raised. Do you feel at this point CETAG should return to the classrooms?
Like I said, they are afraid that should they just take by word of mouth what the employer said or government said. They will go and convince their members to go back to work only for the employer to renege on this commitment. So they want assurance that they can do ABC, the rest they can talk about a payment plan, and particularly so when we have virtually 3 months or so, 4 months or so away from the government maybe exiting office, new administration will come, whether it's the same MPP or NDC or Afafranto, it doesn't really matter. They want assurance that whoever is in the saddle will honor that obligation. If you haven't signed and you made it word of mouth, from next month, you will not see any government official in Accra. Everybody will be in the bush campaigning. So whom are you going to be holding responsible? So they want a certain level of commitment on paper so that they can go and convince their people. In the unlikely event that they are even unable to honor it, the paper will exonerate them tomorrow. I think that's where they are now. Look, the level of perception in this country between workers and the employer as government is just something that you cannot talk about on radio and TV. It's very, very huge. So the employer will have to be very careful, particularly so when the students have suffered almost 42, 3 weeks already without any form of lesson, apart from 1 week or so. So I think it's important that they resolve this matter once and for all. Left me alone, they would have gone to work. They are aware. I have pleaded with them. I was just left with going physically on my knees with them to go back to work as we engage. Labour Commission had played a certain part by way of sending the employer, which is government, not something that is usual, to courts and asking for courts to enforce the implementation of the arbitral award. So clearly, the Labour Commission has also played a great role. What is left now is the employer. If we are told in the submission of the budget review to Parliament that things are getting a little better, then this is not so much money they cannot afford to pay.
Let me bring in Fidelis as we wrap up. Fidelis, would you return to the classroom should government sign this agreement?
Like I said, the agreement is now left with our council to look at it, then we'll take a decision going forward.
So you don't have a timeline as to when you return to the classrooms?
I cannot say that.
Why?
Because we need to look at it as a union, then we take a decision, then to be binding on all of us, then we'll let you know.
Fidelis Kamai, he's a member of CETAG National Communications Team. Thank you for your time here on The Pulse. I also had Austin Game, he's a labor expert. Now, residents of Komenda in the central region are accusing President Akufo-Addo of failing to fulfill his numerous promises to operationalize the Komenda sugar factory. According to the residents, their frustration is over government's decision to import raw and unrefined sugar after neglecting the factory for 8 years. In the following features editor Richard Kodriakum reports that in addition to the $35 million investment, government claims to have invested over 50 million Ghana cedis into the Komenda sugar factory.
The amount of land we need for the sugar, the type of sugar we can grow here, all those things were not properly organized. I think our organization, and also the between strategic investor and also it to me about Bisomu.
President Akufo-Addo making a promise to the people of Komenda. That was 5 years ago.
The sugar factory. Still, some civil works are being done there. Nyampa, by the end of March, it will be completed. And as I say planning, no Indian phone by whenever by April, production will have begun. of the sugar factory.
President Akufo-Addo promising the people of Komenda again when the chiefs of Komenda paid him a visit at the Jubilee House. And yet another promise in 2021.
According to Chairman Teng and the people in the Ministry of Trade, arrangements are one year by the first quarter of 2022. Now factory is going to start running again.
And another one in 2022. Other promises have been made to the people of Komenda by the president, but each time their hopes are dashed.
Unrefined sugar setup this one.
The setup for the unrefined sugar is too small.
See, I try machinery. I am his machinery.
Deputy Trades and Industry Minister Michael Ochibefi announcing that government will be importing raw sugar to feed the factory.
Now the best we can do is because of America.
Now the best we can do is to import raw or unrefined sugar from South America until we get our own plantation.
The latest is Works and Housing Minister Kojo Opon-Kroma. Mr. Opon-Kroma, who was on a tour in the area, told the chiefs and people government needed their support in order to operationalize the factory.
Processed.
We don't have a plantation to feed the factory. What is left is to get raw sugar or unrefined sugar. When they are bringing it like that, government needs to waive the taxes on it to make it affordable. Our friends on the other side do not want to support it. We are appealing to you to intervene so they can allow us get the unrefined sugar to operationalize the factory.
This hasn't gone down well with the people.
Ministers what how be do no. I'm a won pay me bufu.
I get angry. The deception by some ministers who come here. I am a carpenter, so when I hear that a minister is coming, I know that he won't come and say anything good. I only have to concentrate on the job I have learned to take care of my family.
I go follow amba Komenda amba ka sem pepe bia ma engine ndi. Asa wa gbe so many years abado.
I won't say anything that President Akufo-Addo says.
Second 4 years
consistently
also
lying to us. The last 4 years, he deceived, and he deceived us in his second term as well. So does he expect us to vote for him when he failed woefully?
In the market square here, scores of people have gathered in an indistinct chatter. The Komenda Sugar Factory is one of the conversations that does not struggle to find place in what folks talk about here.
They have wasted the land. We could have used it to build a mansion. It is better than leaving it in the state in which it is now. People feel that the Komenda Sugar building is a deity.
Since 2015, meanwhile, what's my property? Since I'm property, Ghana property. Komenda. Now, why the workers are off. I didn't use for nothing.
Ishmael Kobna talks passionately about the Komenda Sugar Factory and how disappointed the community folk are.
Sugar factory now, when we are sure, they
have not planted any sugarcane here. Our prayer was that they would have grown some sugarcane to feed the factory. What we have observed is that the thought processes of our leaders is questionable.
The disappointment of Francis knows no bounds. Francis and his colleagues here say they have lost hope in government.
There was a
People are saying that they say they will import raw sugar to feed the factory. What we wanted was for them to support the farmers to plant the required sugarcane. This is really appalling.
I really said in Kobasina there, or we scale what you see when we do Casa, and Captain Cashu. He can look at
The factory, commissioned in 2016 with a $35 million Indian Export-Import Bank loan facility and an additional $24 million to bolster the activities of sugarcane outgrowers, suffered operational challenges and has not produced any sugar for the market. The residents here say they won't forgive government for looking on for such a project to go waste. Heading to the Komenda sugar factory, I meet Isaac Boama. Isaac says he is MPP but is embarrassed by the turn of event here. He says day in and day out, he gets trolled by his people over the Komenda sugar factory and want government not to let down the trust of the people.
Yasha there and factory payne Komenda drivers no ye dwuma yaye Yasha self fatis wo hwahwe po be boy no mafufutu ibi ando mu komba ina bra na ye bre nti esakofado esenana sibutu aboy ma.
We don't know what is even happening. We have been looking forward for the factory to be operationalized so we the drivers can get a boost in our work. We are suffering. We are pleading with the president to operationalize the factory. They always troll me about this sugar factory. It is because of Percy, who is contesting the KEEA seat. That's why I am in the
NPP. Former board secretary of the Komenda Sugar Factory, Ransford Vani Amwa, believes government's posture about the Komenda Sugar Factory leaves much to be desired and want government to fix the mess.
So from 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24, they still not grew sugarcane. They've not assessed that second tranche of loan, which was approved by Parliament of Ghana. And only to tell us that because we did not develop the canes, that is why they want to import sugar. And they are requesting for a tax waiver so that they will be able to. It's a deception. They only want to deceive the people of Ghana.
Upon an RTR request by Joy News, government has revealed that apart from the $35 million and the additional $24 million facility, government has further pumped in over 52 million Ghana cedis.
In 2019, government indicates that there was an offer by PAC Agrotech to take up a concession instead of outright purchase of the Komenda sugar factory. The offer was considered the most competitive because the ownership of the factory would be retained by government, whilst PAC Agrotech invests $28 million in the company and pays a $3 million annual concession fee to government for 15 years. That is a total of $45 million. However, there was a delay in concluding negotiations between lawyers of PAC Agrotech and PwC in respect of the conditions precedent for the concession agreement to come into force, citing COVID-19 restrictions. PAC Agrotech couldn't meet the deadline to reach a final determination of all guarantees, and the Ministry of Trade terminated the transaction, and the management and operation of the company was handed over to the board to make a determination on the way forward to revive the company. According to the ministry, to avert further delays, the board took over the revival of the factory and started the process of operationalizing the integrated sugar development project with the support of the ministry and the One District, One Factory initiative. A facility of 46,350,000 Ghana cedis has to date been disbursed by the partnering financial institutions, that is, GCB Bank, CBG Bank, and Prudential Bank, for the comprehensive overhauling and retooling of the factory and the addition of a raw sugar handling system to refine raw sugar. Another facility of 6.2 million Ghana cedis was also disbursed by CBG Bank to cover the purchase of sugarcane and other operational expenses during the test run period.
On the streets of Komenda are thousands of eyes and ears still eagerly waiting for government to do the needful by ensuring that all these monies pumped into the revival of the sugar factory do not go down the drain. Richard Kwejo Nyako, Joy News, Komenda.
You're still watching The Pulse, and right now we're getting into violent extremism and security along our borders. Now, if you recall, just yesterday when we had a conversation here on The Pulse, Elton Brube, we discussed currently that there has been a lot of attacks when it comes to our neighboring countries. For example, in Togo, jihadists attacked a military base, and that's an issue of concern for Ghana government because we're looking at how to protect our borders from intruders. Well, there is a program coming up, and I would let my guests in the studio tell me all about it. They call it the Sahel Peace Initiative. I have with me Reverend Father Michael Kweku. He's Director of Governance, Justice and Peace, National Catholic Secretariat. Thank you for your time here on The Pulse. I also have Daniel Mumuni. He's country representative for the Catholic Relief Services, Ghana. Welcome to The Pulse. And I have Richard Akurugu. He's executive director for Caritas Ghana. I'll start with you, Daniel. Tell us, what is the Sahel Peace Initiative all about?
Yes, so, I think you've given a very good introduction to the issue. For the last 10 years, the West African sub-region, the Sahelian region, has faced a lot of violent extremism. Statistics show that many people or many countries are falling to the hands of the jihadists, or the violent extremists, as we would like to call them. If you take Burkina Faso, for example, a chunk of the country is now under the control of militants, the violent extremists. And so in the last 10 years, we've all been thinking about how do we build resilience in these communities and in these countries in twofold. So there's the combating of violent extremism and then the prevention of violent extremism. So in 2019, the Catholic Church, all the Episcopal conferences came together in Burkina Faso to think about how church action can be brought in to look at how this can be contained and addressed. And so the Sahel Peace Initiative is an initiative by the Catholic Church, funded by the Catholic Relief Services, to build this resilience and to look at different strategies, working with national and subnational entities to help address the threat of violent extremism. So it's in Ghana, Burkina Faso, Mali, Cote d'Ivoire, and Niger. And so, yes, in Ghana, this is being led by the Catholic Secretariat.
Now, government says it is tightening security along our borders, especially because our borders are quite porous. Now, let's look at how this initiative can bring together stakeholders, because it's one thing to improve security, but sensitization is key, especially for people living along the borderlines. Tell us more and how this initiative can help fix that problem.
Well, the initiative itself is understood as strengthening, first and foremost, our bonds of humanity and to raise our awareness of the fact that security, social cohesion, and peace is the job of everyone. And because the church understands that this is the job of everyone, it brings together all stakeholders from the policy level to those who live their day-to-day activities. So this initiative works at the policy level with those who take decisions and strategies, but also works with people in their day-to-day activities, communities, people. For instance, we took out some project with youth unemployment to empower them, to help them to find new skills or to sharpen existing ones, or to direct them to also find their own path in life, so that this sense of empowerment reduces the temptation to be pulled or pushed into any form of extremism. At the policy level, for instance, we will be launching a 5-year strategic plan, which we have done with various aspects in the area of security and social cohesion. So at every level, policy or otherwise, we are bringing people together to the conversation table to see how we can all contribute to building peace and ensuring security.
I'll come to you, Richard, because this is quite key. You've been partnering with a lot of organizations to ensure that issues such as violent extremism and security threats is dealt with at the stakeholder level. Yeah. What should we expect in this conference?
Okay, so this is a 2-day event that we are hosting at Accra International Conference, and we are bringing together stakeholders from government side. We are looking at key ministries that are relevant to peace building in the country. We are looking at traditional authorities. We are bringing together CSOs operating in the space of peace building. We are bringing ordinary Ghanaians, including people who are into day-to-day activities, women groups, youth groups, all those who are relevant, and which is a carefully selected list of the cross-section of the Ghanaian society. And we are prioritizing these issues in a way that on the first day of the event, which is the 30th of July, we are going to focus on general peace and social cohesion and security matters. Then on the second day, we are going to focus on election 2024. On each day, we have key presentations from experts, but we also have panel discussions where experts will sort of present ideas on key topical issues, and participants will have the opportunity to contribute and then to ask questions. So this event is actually to raise awareness about the need for all of us to contribute towards building a cohesive society, a peaceful society, and a secure society.
Now, I'll come to you, Daniel. We've been hearing about jihadist attacks in Nigeria. Now it is inching closer to us, just Togo. As a country, do you think that stakeholder dialogue is enough to fix this problem?
Well, that's a very good question. It's a first start, but it's not the panacea to the resolution of this, because I think we need to look at the root causes. Why are the attacks happening, and why are people being radicalized? And the answer is very simple. When people's basic needs are not met, when people feel disillusioned, these are all recipes for the threat of violent extremism. And so aside what we call the kinetic, which is like more the military activities of border control and all of that, we need to look at how, first of all, we can address issues of inequality, issues of marginalization, because we are also seeing huge marginalizations of some vulnerable groups, the Fulbe being one. Until these things are resolved, we stand a threat of seeing a lot of upheaval within our society. But more importantly, also about youth unemployment. When you look at the youth bulge and the number of young people that are unemployed, these are all recipes for radicalization and the influence of violent extremists. And very lastly is the issue of basic services. When people's needs and wants are not met, and especially when that vacuum is being filled by these violent extremists who do not only come, they come with messages and they come with goods. If you look at their strategy all across the Sahel region, they don't just come with force, but they also sometimes come with issues that or services that addresses community needs. So this is why it is important that we look at comprehensive solutions to the issue of violent extremism. Yes, the military aspect is very important, and government is doing a lot. I mean, we've got a fantastic security service. But let's also begin to look at the social services. How are we addressing people's needs, and how are we ensuring that people can thrive in just societies? And here I'm talking about the issue of marginalization, so that nobody feels excluded, and that there are mechanisms where we can also resolve issues. In every society, there are conflicts. It's part of our human society. But how do we create mechanisms where there can be dialogue and mediation when these happen? And I think this is what we're trying to promote. Trust building among citizenry, trust building between citizens and security forces, and collaboration across board to ensure that we are living in a peaceful and a just society.
I'll come to you, Reverend Father Michael, because you have been preaching peace, especially because we're inching closer to the general elections 2024. But in this day and age where we have concerns about jihadist group attacking and infiltrating our system, do you think that we're in the right place to just preach peace? What else should we do?
Well, I believe that peace is not merely a desired end. Peace itself is also an instrument, is a means to achieving what it purports to attain. So yes, preaching, talking about it, dialoguing, using what we call discursive power is useful. But one saint is said to have said that you know, you must preach all the time, use words if necessary. It means that peace is first and foremost an attitude. It's a mindset. It's the choice of action, what we decide to do or not to do. So talking is important because, of course, how else would you know what is in somebody's head? Talking has the power to calm people down and to assure them of a brighter future. But that must transfer into concrete actions, concrete attitude towards peace. Because, as we know, peace is not just the absence of war. St. Thomas Aquinas is the one who called peace as the tranquility of the created order, to make sure that everything falls in place. If you want, it is the marriage between justice and mercy, so that we are building not only strong institutions, but serious and responsible citizens who themselves find that peace becomes both their mission and their way of living.
But in a day and age where the young people feel the need to vent their frustration, we've spoken about some of the triggers of some of these things when you're unemployed, when you're frustrated with government policies. How then you propose government fix this issue?
Well, I think that the institutions of our country have to work, which means that vigilance, for me, is important. To be able to assess the performance of state institutions, to be able to hold public office holders to account, to give the citizenry the necessary space to articulate their needs and also to, as it were, give the assessment of the performance of those they have elected to office, but also that they themselves, youth and otherwise, must find that they have a role and a responsibility towards building peace and contributing to the flourishing of society. So it is not just a one-sided conversation. It is putting into practice this principle of co-responsibility, where everyone has a responsibility and has a stake in building what we desire as our common collective assumption and aspirations.
I would come to Daniel shortly, but let me come to you, Richard. And as a young person, what is my role in ensuring that Ghana protects this peace that we enjoy right now?
I think the first and cardinal thing every young person has to be mindful of is the fact that the peace we enjoy in our country should not be taken for granted. There are people in other areas of the world who, for no fault of theirs, today, they don't have a place they can call a home. They have become strangers in another man's land. And so we should be grateful that we have a country, we have a home, we have a place we can call our own. And so we have to all guard against that, against people destabilizing our country. We have to, as youth, we may have our grievances, but we should be responsible in demanding what is duly ours. Yes.
Now, I'll come to you, Daniel, because as a young person, I'm wondering, you talk about how being marginalized in society can actually trigger some of these things and even influence you to be a part of jihadist groups. Just last week, we're discussing the witchcraft bill that was brought before Parliament. The President refused to assent to that bill because it places a lot of financial strain on the consolidated fund. He proposed that it shouldn't have been a private member's bill, but rather something introduced by the presidency. Now, Siraj has already told the presidency to assent to this bill. We're living a day and time where even our constitutional review and in terms of our legal structures is making it very difficult to protect people who are marginalized. How then do I come on board as a young person?
Well, I mean, I think it's important for us to realize that we, as a young person, first of all, there's a voice, right? And as Richard was saying, it's how we apply that voice, you know, and that is what democracy is all about. Democracy creates the space for us to dialogue and for us to, you know, push back if need be, using the systems and the institutions in place. And I think that is really important. I mean, the concept of social accountability, when we talk about social accountability, is about, you know, the right of citizens to hold duty bearers accountable and helping our duty bearers to also understand that they hold a responsibility that we measure them by. So I think organizing ourselves and being able to utilize the voice through the institutions that are well established, because the youth has the energy, right? And that energy has to be applied properly. And so it's just important for us to figure out the right mechanisms to put pressure where need be and use institutions. We have representatives in Parliament who are supposed to be the voices of the people. There's civil society, and within our own communities, we can mobilize ourselves. We have traditional authorities. So it's really important that we use the right mechanisms to articulate. The biggest threat to peace and security is also when we wait until it escalates. You know, sometimes people bottle things up and then it blows out of proportion. And so that continuous engagement is important for us to air our views and hope that we can influence policy. But it's important that we really understand that we've got the power to do that through the institutions that are established within our Constitution.
Now, I'll come to you, Reverend Michael. What's the role of the National Catholic Secretariat when it comes to ensuring that some of these extremist groups are not even in our society as we speak, because young people are most vulnerable to them?
Well, the National Catholic Secretariat, as you may know, is the executive arm of the Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference. And the Catholic Church and the Bishops' Conference, for that matter, is guided by what is revealed in Scripture and in sacred tradition as the will of God for humanity, that all of us, in spite of our differences, are called to live in unity and in peace and to create the environment for the mutual development of everybody. Because of that, the Catholic Secretariat, guided by these principles and the principles of the social doctrine of the Church, engages various sectors of society, especially where we find that there are hotspots in relation to peace, to dialogue, and to direct. So the church opens its doors, dares to engage all manner of people. In fact, for example, my department, responsible for such matters, at the beginning of this year, went round the country training various religious leaders in interreligious dialogue as a tool for promoting a cohesive society. So the church doesn't shy from engaging society in its different categories and expressions. So that is how the church's approach is. It believes in both the proclamation of the gospel and the dialoguing with people, whoever they are, whatever their background, to make sure that it contributes positively to building a cohesive society, an environment for peace and development.
Thank you so much. I'll wrap up with you, Daniel, and also come to you, Richard, for your final words.
Well, I think, with all that we've said, it's important for us to understand that the threat of violent extremism, in fact, it's an eminent one. It's not something that we're saying, but it's something that national security is well aware and concerned about. And just to give a little bit of statistics to show how close this is to us. This year alone, in the first quarter of this year, the Fusion Center of the Ministry of Security, National Security, has released a report that says we've had about 4,200 threats, attacks actually, in the sub-region, out of which about almost 1,200 people have died so far in the first quarter. And this is an increase of over 130% in terms of the attacks and about 14% in terms of the deaths. It means that the threat is increasing instead of decreasing. And that poses a huge concern for all of us as a country. In your introduction, you also mentioned the attack in Togo. Almost all the neighboring countries have had their fair share of attacks, unfortunately. And the expression that if your friend's beard is on fire, you put water next to yours. And I think that is what this is all about. And so for us, next week's engagement is more about how do we have a multi-stakeholder approach, realizing that this is not the responsibility of just one individual or one institution or one agency. Everybody from the youth to the security forces to, every single person should be of concern and should have an interest and a role to play in terms of how we ward off violent extremism in Ghana. We've got one country, and we have to make sure that our borders are secure. And very lastly, to mention that sometimes we think of violent extremism from the perspective of an incursion into the country. There is also the possibility of homegrown, extremists. And so how we apply our understanding of things from the religious angle, from the social angle, we need to be very measured. From the political angle, especially as we head towards national elections, we can brew violent extremists in our own country, even through the political system, when people hold very strong views and are willing to go the full extent to express those views. So it's really important for all of us to realize that this is not just an external threat, but it could also be internal. But let's all work together to make Ghana the most peaceful country, or to continue keeping Ghana a peaceful and safe country for all of us.
I'll wrap up with you, Richard. Tell us where this event is happening, time, date, and how I can be a part of it.
Okay, so the National Forum on Social Cohesion, Security and Peaceful Elections is happening at Accra International Conference Center on Tuesday, July 30th, and Wednesday, July 31st. And we have a hybrid version, the in-person and then online. For the in-person one, it is strictly by invitation. And for the online one, you can check on our social media platforms, CRS and then National Catholic Secretariat, Governance, Justice and Peace, and Caritas Ghana. You will get a link there to follow through. You have the opportunity to contribute, to ask questions, even if you are an online participant.
Thank you so much for making time to join us. Reverend Father Michael, Daniel, and Richard. You're still watching The Pulse. We're taking a quick breather. We'll be back with more. Do stay tuned in. Thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. The Ghana Institute of Foresters has called on government to, as a matter of urgency, withdraw Executive Instrument 144, that de-reserved portion of the Achimota Forest Reserve. Now, in a statement, the Institute says there are ways to generate revenues from the forest while maintaining its ecological integrity, suggesting an eco-park idea. Now, they say that the destruction of the forest reserve can have a very devastating effect on the environment and human life. Let's get more on this. Join us for a conversation now is Dr. Abubakar Natongba Atta. He's president of the Ghana Institute of Foresters. I also have Dr. Paul Oseitu. He's senior lecturer at KNUST Faculty of Renewable Natural Resources and executive member of the Ghana Institute of Foresters. Thank you for your time, gentlemen, here on The Pulse. Now, I'll start with you, Dr. Abubakar, because you're raising concerns, Abubakar, because you're raising concerns about Ghana's forest reserves. And you say that not only the Achimota Forest is threatened. Tell us more.
Thank you very much, Madam. If you watch our forest law, section 2D of the Forest Act 1927, Cap 157, it states that our forest reserves were deliberately for the purposes that include safeguarding water supplies, sustaining ecological integrity, and the forest microclimate needed for cocoa production and sustaining timber production. If you observe that cocoa production and timber production are our
Doc, I seem to be having an interference. You might have to turn off the television set from where you are right now. That way we can hear you clearly. You were just telling us about Ghana's ecology laws. Tell us more about that. I'm sure now I have clearer connection to you. You would have to unmute at this point so that I can hear you. If you just tuned in, we're discussing the de-reserving of parts of Achimota Forest. I can hear you loud and clear now. Doc, you have the floor. Please make your point.
Yes, I was saying that looking at our forest laws, Section 2D of the Forest Act 1927, Cap 157, it stipulates that our reserves were deliberately for purposes that include safeguarding water supplies, sustaining ecological integrity, and the forest microclimate needed for cocoa production and sustaining timber production. And I'm saying that both cocoa and timber are our major foreign exchange earner. And if we decide to clear our forests, the microclimate that is needed for cocoa production will not be achieved. Timber production too, if we decide to clear the forest, then we won't even get any timber to export. Fortunately, the EU came with a voluntary partnership agreement, which was signed in 2007 and ratified in 2009, for us to protect our forests so that we could get legal timber coming from the reserves. But now with this EI 144, it's saying that Achimota should be cleared, the forest there should be cleared and used for other purposes, such as construction of buildings, shopping malls, and all those kind of things, which is not going to give us anything better. And it also defeats our UN Sustainable Goals and Development, Section 15, which talks about protection of the environment and mitigating the climate changes that we all are calling for. Now, if you look at the Achimota Forest, it is the only green belt that is in the center of Accra. And it's able to absorb carbon from the pollutions that we have from both human activities and vehicular pollution. Now, let me also emphasize that a tree absorbs 21 kilograms of carbon dioxide oxide per annum. And look at the number of trees that are there and the pollution that is going on in Accra. So if we decide to come and fell all these trees, what are we talking about? Now, many people may not see what GIF is saying, but until we get some diseases respiratory diseases, where we'll be asked to buy oxygen bottles. That is where we'll get to know that there's a need for us to preserve this Achimota Forest.
Already, the air we breathe in urban areas, most experts would say, are already polluted to a large extent. You are spelling doom for the country moving forward. You also say in your statement that apart from the Achimota Forest, there are other forest reserves in Ghana that are threatened by infrastructural aspirations. Tell us more about these other areas.
Yes. So if you go to Tamale, the GES plantation, the waterworks plantations, and Winneba Waterworks Forest Reserve, Guapo Forest in Pokuasi, Tamale Waterworks Forest Reserve, etc. So if these forests are cleared, you can imagine the population that is growing in this kind of areas and the pollution that is being carried on. You realize that very soon we'll have respiratory problems, and which we will need more money in our hospitals to cure these things. So the best for us is to safeguard this forest by not allowing these reserves to be cleared.
Now, government in its defense says that we're living in a society where urbanization has put a lot of strain on our resources. We currently have a housing deficit which government is struggling to fix because we have a lot of people moving to urban centers. How do you then propose we fix this problem?
Yeah, so why are people moving from rural areas to urban areas? The question is, there are no jobs in the rural areas. So what the government can do is to create more jobs in the rural areas to curb the urban and rural migration to the urban areas. The housing deficit is not, the clearing of Achimota Forest is not a solution to this urban drift. They will continue to come, especially when we don't have jobs in the rural areas for the people to stay and work. Now, if the government wants, agric is the most important thing that every community finds itself. If they can increase agriculture, like the food and planting for jobs that they initiated, I think it will help to curb the rural urban migration that they are talking about clearing Achimota. But that is even going to be a temporary solution. What is the acreage of Achimota Forest left now? It's about 306 acres. So are they telling us that if they clear this Achimota Forest and put even skyscrapers, the rural urban drifts, they think that people can come and occupy and we will have housing problem solved? That is not it. So they should either look at other ways and preserve this our green belt for our future generation.
Let me bring in Dr. Paul Osei-Tutu at this point in time, because we have just been educated on the health implication of the de-reserving of some of our key forest reserves. Expatiate on that for us, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to address the public on this important matter. So, those of us from the Ghana Institute of Foresters, we hold our urban forest in such a high extent because we know what they do for the quality of the urban air. Urban areas continue to have increasing numbers of cars, and each car on the urban road on daily basis is polluting the urban air. And let me just make an analogy most of us can relate to. So during the times of when people were using lots of generators, occasionally we hear that somebody goes to bed and doesn't wake up in the morning because the person had running generator in their room for the fear of theft. So obviously the fumes from generators and cars, they are not good for us. And yet we are having increasing numbers of cars in the urban air polluting on a daily basis. Why we are not falling dead as we work in the urban environment is because the concentration of the pollutants have not reached levels where people may fall dead. But it could reach those levels. It's already happening in some countries. Lots of Chinese, Beijing being an example. The air quality has deteriorated to points where at times the government will have an alert. People have to wear masks because the concentration of the urban of the pollutants in the urban air is so high. In Ghana, we have not reached there because we have all these urban plants cleaning the urban air. So that is why the urban forest is to us. And we need to keep it because we don't want to wait for the concentration of the. We can't say we are going to stop driving cars. And most of this, particularly the public transport cars, they emit all these dark fumes in the air. Because they appear, the fumes appear to disappear. We cannot assume. Nobody really thinks about where the fumes go. It merely diffuses into the urban air. And over time, the quality of the urban air keeps going down. It's unfortunate nobody checks this. It's even possible it's not even safe in some parts of the city. But we have this urban vegetation helping to clean the air. And it's very vital to us. And it's a service we don't want to lose, particularly from the Achimota Forest we are discussing right now.
Thank you, Dr. Paul Osei-Tutu, for joining us here on The Pulse. We also spoke earlier to Dr. Abakari. Now let's move on to other stories. The African Union will send a specialized team of election observers to monitor Ghana's upcoming election in December. This is according to the AU's Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Ambassador Bankole Adeoye. Now, during his working visit to the Ghana Boundary Commission, Ambassador Adeoye praised the Commission for its efforts in maintaining stability within Africa.
It's been a beacon of hope for economic, political, democratic stability. And we see the next opportunities that will come with the elections on the 7th of December as a golden chance to reaffirm the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance. And I want to assure you that the African Union will be sending a formidable team of experts that will comprise members of our organs, members of the African civil society, working with ECOWAS in particular to ensure that we pray and hope to witness peaceful, successful elections in Ghana. It is also necessary that we see the future of a borderless Africa, where we look at a better free movement of persons in our region, in ECOWAS, and in other regions across the landscape of the African continent. That will help boost our stability and even economic development because, as you know, border communities trade without even going through all the rigors of immigration facilities. Most importantly is the work that the Ghana Boundary Commission has been doing in maritime security. We commend the efforts. This aligns with our goal of holding a continental maritime exercise that will bring in the Navy, will bring in the boundary commissions and all actors in the field, including civil society and the private sector.
Well, the Commissioner General of the Ghana Boundary Commission, Major General Emmanuel Kotria, expressed optimism about resolving the maritime dispute between Ghana and Togo. He emphasized the Commission's role in supporting underprivileged border communities, which is crucial in preventing exploitation by terrorist groups and other malicious actors.
The issue is that it's being raised to the head of state level, and at the head of state level, once it has reached there, it means that we are getting closer to getting a solution to it. That is what I meant.
So hopefully,
as soon as possible. So the background I gave was that when this issue came up, the two presidents met and decided that they shouldn't go to court, but rather this should be resolved through negotiations between the two countries. And that is one conduit That's the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea provides. Once there are a number of ways in resolving this. So one of the methodology that we can use is through negotiations, and that is what Ghana and Togo have adopted.
When it breaks down?
The key thing is that once it has reached the two head of states, we're hoping that the negotiations will be resolved amicably. Most of the issues, the conflicts, and most of the issues of terrorism and what have you, they are targeted on the private border communities because they can easily be brainwashed, they can easily be recruited, and then the satisfaction along these communities become very rampant. Now, the other thing too is that agitations can easily come from those places. Once these are sorted, then we are able to resolve some of the issues that relate to peace, security, and stability within the country. That is one dimension. I'm not saying that it resolves everything, but it's an area that is very fundamental because we are responsible for boundaries. We go into the deep areas of our boundaries and we see this, we physically see this, the private border communities. So intervening in these areas is something that we've taken as a priority.
We are your election headquarters, and in the studio with me I have the founder and flag bearer of the All People's Congress, because they have sounded a warning against religious interference in Ghana's electoral process, particularly the proliferation of fake prophecies. Well, Hassan Ayariga made this statement during a courtesy call by the National Commission on Civic Education to his office as part of their engagement with political parties to promote a peaceful election. He joins me in the studio with more. First off, what is prompting this warning?
You see, many Ghanaians believe in their prophets, let's say their pastors. And in this crucial election of 2024, I'm pleading with the pastors to stop the prophecies of who is going to become the next president of Ghana. Because this election is a crucial one. If a prophet should come out and prophesy that candidate A is going to be president, and at the end of the day, that candidate doesn't become a president, then it's going to be war. It's going to be chaotic. People will come out and say, no, this is the results and it has been turned. And we don't want that. We want a peaceful election. We don't want the interference of prophecies by pastors and so-called men of God, from imams, chiefs, and all that. They should allow the election to go without prophecies. Let every Ghanaian go and vote. Let all the political leaders go and campaign. If you win, that's the will of God. If you don't, that is not from any pastor prophesying A, B, and C. In the last election, you saw it. Many of them prophesied that John Mahama was going to be president. Some said Nana Addo will continue. And all these things, you know the effect of it. And in this crucial 2024 elections, I think that some of us need to tell the pastors the truth, the imams the truth. Let's pray for a peaceful election so that we come out of this election peacefully and continue to carry on with our businesses, our transactions, because we're already in crisis. And we don't want what happened in Kenya to happen in Ghana or other countries that is happening. We don't want that. So all we want from these prophets is a peaceful election. They should pray to God for God to choose a leader for us. Their prayer should be that God choose a leader for Ghana. It doesn't matter who is coming. It could be APC, it could be an independent candidate, it could be a political party leader. Let's pray for God's guidance to choose a leader for Ghanaians and have a peaceful election.
The opposition NDC, in a press conference, raised concerns about the credibility of the Electoral Commission. They say they do not believe the Electoral Commission can organize a free and fair election. Do you believe the EC is competent enough?
I think that per the processes so far, following the processes so far, we all agree that we should have a credible election, free and fair election. But all these free, fair elections means that we all have to be part of it. If you allow somebody to run an election without you monitoring, you don't expect it to be free. You don't expect it to be fair. So all we are saying is that if we all want a credible election, then we must all put our polling agents to be at the polling stations to monitor whatever is happening. You cannot just sit down and say it's going to be free. It's definitely going to be free, but you cannot say it's going to be fair. So if the NDC is coming out to say that they don't think that it's going to be a fair election, then what they need to do is to put their agents at the polling stations.
But do you think the EC is competent enough to organize a free and fair election?
I think, of course, they've organized several elections. I'm not putting
with this current leadership?
I'm not putting it in context of leadership. You asked the question of EC.
Okay.
And I'm giving you
Are you confident in the current leadership to organize a free and fair election?
If we are not confident in them, then we will not have a peaceful election.
So you are confident in them?
I'm confident that they will organize a peaceful election, but I'm also confident that we should monitor and make sure that we get what we need.
I would go into the structures you are putting in place as one of the opposition parties to ensure that you monitor the upcoming elections, especially because I know you're on the campaign trail. We'll get into that shortly, but let's look at this call for debate between the two top political parties, the NDC and the NPP.
I think that is unfair to other political parties. Why NDC and NPP? Are they the only candidates or party contesting for the election? No. We have APC, we have, I'm sure the other political parties like PNC, CPP will all come out with their candidates. So far we have 3 presidential candidates, the NDC, MPP, and the APC. Why saying that only 2 political leaders should go for a debate? Why is it? I don't know who is calling for that, but whoever is calling for that is not being fair to the other political parties. It's not being fair to Ghanaians, because we are running a multi-party democracy where we believe that all political parties must be given equal platform, equal opportunity to sell their policies and visions. So if we say the NDC and the MPP, what we are doing is that we are being biased. Whichever institution is organized is being biased to the other political parties, is already promoting the NDC and MPP, and which is what we have been campaigning against. You realize that in most talk shows every morning and TV stations, it's only representative of NDC and MPP. And when you ask or write to the producers and say, you want to send a representative of APC, they tell you that this is the decision of management. So we don't understand why we run a multi-party democracy and it's always NDC and MPP. First of all, let's go to the debate. What is the debate all about? It's about political leaders coming out with their manifestos, policy, their visions, strategies to build this country. Over the years, we've seen that of the NDC and the MPP. When I mentioned when Baumia mentioned digitalization, I said, go to my manifesto, it's there, under e-governance. But because it is the bigger party saying it, people are running and campaigning against it. When I said 24-hour production, manufacturing for businesses and companies, 3-shift system, in my manifesto in 2020 and 2016, nobody said anything. But now when President Mahama mentioned it, everybody is talking about it. So let's allow the political parties to come out and debate. Debate here means that come and sit down, like you and I don't have anything in front of me right now. I'm giving a piece of paper and a pen, write my question if I don't understand, and answer. But when we say debate, and you are given an iPad, you come with your political party manifesto, you sit down, and you are reading to the public. I don't see as debate. And this is what the NDC and people over the years have been doing. They read manifestos to Ghanaians to listen. That is not a debate. That is a reading of manifesto. I challenge them, the 2 parties, the NDC and MPP. I am challenging the 2 of them to sit with me without their manifesto, without their iPad, like I'm sitting here, and let's all talk about our policies and visions for Ghana, and let's see who will be the best out of the best.
I'll be glad to see that.
I would also like to hear that. Not the issue of coming and then you sit down. I mean, even children have stopped doing that. In secondary school these days, when we go for debate, we don't sit down with pamphlets. We go into the hall, and we're only given a piece of paper, come out and talk. But in current presidential debate, it's appalling. It's disgraceful. In all the debate that I have done with President Mahama, President Akufo-Addo, I never went in with any piece of paper. I just walked in like that, and they were always carrying their manifesto booklets. And I find it ridiculous, you understand? So for me, the 2024 debate should be organized in 2 segments.
Okay.
Segment number 1 for political parties.
Okay.
And segment number 2 for independent presidential candidates. So that we'll see, because Ghanaians are tired of the 2 parties and the issue of this is my policy, that is your policy. Sit now, tell us your policies without reading from your manifesto. Let the Ghanaian people hear and make a decision who they want to vote for 2024. Because the 2024 election is a crucial one. And we are tired of promises. Because promises over the years have failed Ghanaians. They've failed us drastically. And I don't think Ghanaians are interested in the 2 major political parties anymore. And you will see the results after the 2024 general election. I'm sure even now, when you're looking at the terrain, you'll see that Ghanaians are tired of these 2 parties and do not want to vote. And if we are not careful, we have a huge voter apathy in 2024.
You have been on the ground. You've been engaging voters. You're looking to position yourself to be that third-party force Ghanaians should look out for. Let's get into your manifesto. Is it ready?
Yes, it's ready.
Let's look at...
My manifesto right here.
Let's look at your plan for security. We've been discussing the issue about security and how we're having terrorist and jihadist attacks in neighboring countries like Togo with Ghana's porous border. What's your plan to ensure that the country is safe?
I think that, first of all, we need to begin to start to build a security force, security institution, devoid of political party interference and political party boys or job for the boys. We have security institutions that very few of them are elite, and the rest of them are job for the boys. Take it from the police, from the military, from the national security, from SEPs and all that. These institutions, most likely, most of the time, are job for the boys. A security institution is an intelligent institution. And as APC, our policy is that before you get access or you get enrolled into any of the police security institution, you must have first degree. You must come with a first degree. Because it's an intelligent institution. We cannot just put anybody to become a police officer, anybody to become a military officer, anybody to become a national security officer, because we are looking for job for the boys. That is what affecting our security agencies and their capabilities. Now, the issue of what is happening in the jihadism, look, let's be sincere. Politicians are part of it. Look at the situation of Boko. Boko has been in war between the Mamprusis and the Kusasis for the past 3 years. What has government done to be able to stop this issue of conflict between the Kusasis and the Mamprusis and other, regions in the northern sector? We allow it to escalate. We don't care. The president is not even much worried about it. What do you think is going to happen? Jihadis from Burkina Faso, if one side of the conflict decide to go and hire men, okay, if the Mamprusis or the Kusa decide, oh look, we are short of men, let's go and look for fighters from Burkina Faso to come. What do you think is going to happen? We are importing what? Terrorists into our communities. And the borders are open. You just walk from Burkina to Ghana, from Togo to Ghana. You don't even need, nobody cares about you. So all the institutions, all the borders in the 2-3 zones are not being properly taken care of.
How do you propose we take good care of them?
What I propose is a data system. That nobody just walk into Ghana with just saying that I'm traveling to Ghana. You don't just travel to Ghana anyhow. We need to have security posts in all the border sectors, monitored very well, very carefully.
Which
we
do,
which we're not doing. No, we don't do. I come from the border sector. I can just walk into San Council with a motorbike and drive back, and nobody's going to ask me, what are you carrying? The cars just go. The monitoring is an important aspect when it comes to security. We're not monitoring.
What measures will you put in place to ensure monitoring is of top priority?
Yes, number one, I'll make sure that all border controls are put with proper securities and proper data to monitor everybody coming. You don't just walk into Ghana anyhow. There'll be border control, police control system that will monitor every corner of every border coming to Ghana. That nobody just walk into Ghana anyhow and nobody leaves Ghana anyhow. These are measures that will, and then even all the vehicles. You realize that Burkina Faso, when they are coming to Ghana, they come in with their vehicles, and all they need to do is just to pay money to the agents, those who are at the borders, and they will drive in. Whatever they are carrying in, nobody cares. Whatever they are carrying out from Ghana out there, nobody cares. All they need to do is to bribe the officer on duty, and they get through. You cannot just walk into any country. Like you go to Canada and you're going into the US, and you see the control. Go to Germany and go to Italy, you see all these countries and you see the control. Why are we not putting measures to make sure that our security is tight, that we can defend our society? Because when we fail to defend our society, we are putting them at risk. And when we put them at risk, we are putting the whole country at risk. Look at what happened to Trump. So I'm not saying Ghana, US is the best, but I'm saying that we can be better than where we are. And I will make sure that we are better off, because I'm going to train proper securities and not just job for the boys, to make sure that they do the right thing and monitor every to and fro movement into Ghana and out of Ghana. And definitely we have border patrol teams at all borders.
How prepared are you for the December polls? Have you elected your officials that will be representing the party in all the constituencies? We have. Right now we are doing volunteers elections. People who want to support, voluntarily want to support the parties. There are many people we are asking to voluntarily support the party at the various community they find themselves. For instance, you, wherever you are, your community, you just volunteer and say, look, this year around, I have listened to Hassan Araga's policies and vision. I think that let's move towards the APC and Hassan Araga. And these volunteers will come out because it's very, very capital expensive, what do you call it? Intensive. And because of that, that is why the NDC and MPP are able to manipulate the voters. We are saying, look, we don't have that money like NDC is doing, or MPP. We are asking you, if you want a better government, if you want accountability, if you want probity, if you want leadership, be part of the campaign and make sure we all do the right thing, devoid of monetization of our politics. And then we will get the best leaders to lead us. Because over the years, we don't even ask if the NDC comes and gives us 100 Ghana cedis, MPP comes and gives us 200 Ghana cedis. We're just voting. But we don't even question them where they are getting these monies from and buying our vote. But we want them to do things for us. They will not. They've paid you by giving you the money at the police station and you voted for them. So what do you expect accountability anymore? So it is high time now we all become volunteers at the police station, at the constituency level, support the APC and Hassan Araga, so we can build a country devoid of corruption, devoid of monetization, a country where you and I are so important, and we change our mindset. That is the political idea, change of mindset and attitude. If we don't change our mindset, we're going to be recycling NDC and MPP until the kingdom come, and we keep crying and keep suffering. I don't know the last time you went to the market. Go to the market and see the prices of goods and services. Yeah. You don't even understand whether we are in Ghana. Because your salary, sorry, but cannot take you a whole month. I'm sure. Maybe your father or your husband or your boyfriend will have to add something. But I'm part of the well-paid staff. So. Yeah, okay. Even if you are part of the well-paid staff, your salary still cannot take you because prices of goods have gone up. Nobody is saying you're not part of the well-paid staff, but I'm saying because of the difficulties we face, the challenges we face, we don't produce. We import rice, $1.2 billion every year. We don't produce. We import oil. We don't manufacture. Everything is imported. And everybody has become corrupt in the system. How would you fix the issue of the escalating prices of goods and services on our market? Yes, that is one of the policies of the APC is to establish a price control guarantee system. Okay, how would that work?
That's going to work. You see, we have a policy which is control prices of goods and services in the market. Over the years, because we don't produce and don't manufacture, people import a lot of goods from the market, from outside and bring it in. When they come in, they determine the price of goods without government interference and monetization. So the price of goods are determined, they call it free market. They determine the price by themselves. So every day, somebody gets up and says, today, I'm selling my gallon of oil for 500 Ghana cedis. The next day, he looks at the market and says, no, I'm selling it 600. Nobody controls it. It's not being controlled, it's not being monitored. So APC is putting a policy to make sure that prices of goods and services in the market are captured under our data system that we want to implement, and make sure that we determine the value, including you and I, will determine the value of prices and goods in the market, so that nobody just get up and start increasing prices outrageously. And that is what is happening. And that is why I say we are all corrupt. Why are we corrupt? You go to the market. The market woman buys a tube of yam for 5 cedis from the northern part of Ghana. He brings it to Accra. He adds prices, costs, and everything, and he's selling 1 tube of yam for 25 Ghana cedis. 20 Ghana cedis on top of the cost of the price of the tube of yam. Are we not corrupt? You have corrupted the price. When we talk about corruption, corruption is not just those who sit in the offices of government and inflate prices of contracts and other figures of contracts. No, it's also those of us who are in the market who determine the price of goods and services by just outrageously increasing the price without determining the fate of the Ghanaian people. That's corruption. We're corrupting the value of the product, and it's everywhere. So if we talk about corruption and we want to say that we are not corrupt, market women are not corrupt, businessmen, we are all part of it. And that is why the APC believes in the national data system and the price control and guarantee system to monitor everything in this country so that we police ourselves. And when we police ourselves, there'll be price guarantee. So you know that the price of a pen is 5 cedis here, everywhere is 5 cedis. You don't go to somebody, nobody can determine. That is why the dollar is suffering. You know why the dollar is suffering? The cedi is suffering? The Abochi sits down in the market, determine the price of the cedi against the dollar. It is not even coming from Bank of Ghana. Today, you walk to him and say, Abochi, I want $100. And he says, Madam, I don't have $100. At the moment, we are selling $100 at 15 Ghana cedis. But my friend get them. If you want, my friend will give you 16 Ghana cedis. You want? Then you say yes. He will go and bring a seat. Who determines the price of the dollar?
So as we wrap up the conversation, let's look at an area that has been of concern for a lot of people, which is Ghana's pension structure. Just a few weeks back, there was a back and forth between Senate, government, TUC, because Senate wanted to sell 6% stake in 4 of their hotels to Rock City Hotel. Now, the bigger concern now is about Ghana's pension scheme and how sustainable it is. What's your plan if you are elected president?
You see, my dear, because of lack of data and proper information monitoring, everything is haphazard in Ghana. People work, their salary is not guaranteed, their jobs are not guaranteed. SNIT is an institution that is supposed to, in Germany or in the US, they call it, what do you call it? Oh, the US people call it, forgotten this word. Once we were talking.
It will come.
It will come.
Yes.
They make sure that where you work, there's a contribution of you as a worker and government and the employer. So you are paying your rent, what do you call it? Your SNIT allowances to government, and the employer who has employed you is also paying this quota. So you are guaranteed your money, your pension, after working 65 years. When you attain the age of 65, your salary is probably 80% of your SNIT outcome.
But here's the case, the concern is not about contributions. The concern is about managing contributions. until when it matures for whoever contributed their money to access it.
Yeah, the problem is that we don't have a data for the management of contribution. People don't have any information about the people. They just, the SNIT will come and say, okay, you've worked for this. How many people even pay SNIT in this country? Because there is no data for us to tax the individual employer and the employee to pay tax. So that at the end of the year, his working period, he sees, he doesn't even need to come and ask SNIT. He will see the value of his amount by calculating at home. Because he will percentage it by his salary to his contribution. He knows how much he's getting. But we don't have any data at all in this country. People do things and get away. There are many people who have worked. Today, there are many Ghanaians who are suffering because they can't get their pension.
Yeah.
A lot of them have died. And even their children and family are chasing need for the pension and they don't get. What kind of economy are we running?
So you propose that we should track the system properly.
Properly.
And that's what you do if you're elected president. Well, my guest here on the Pulse, Hassan Ayariga, sharing with us some of his plans and policies. He's proposing that moving forward, government should broaden this debate and ensure that other political parties are involved. Well, the Ghana Real Estate Expo US 2024 is set to connect real estate players in Ghana with the US market with the hope of bridging the gap between the two. The premier event aims to attract potential home buyers, vendors, stakeholders and investors to key members of the real estate sector. Peace Amenope has more in the following report.
Ghana Real Estate Expo US 2024 is an initiative being spearheaded by US-based Ghanaian Joseph Vanderpoy with the objective of fostering meaningful connections and potential business opportunities. Speaking at a ceremony to outdoor the fair, CEO of West Africa Times and organizer of the expo, Joseph Sonny Vanderpoy, said the objective of the fair is aimed at providing a platform for participants to build awareness and connect with leading real estate developers. The forum will also provide the players with an opportunity to engage with financing institutions to facilitate property acquisition in Ghana. He encouraged stakeholders to take advantage of the expo to expand their customer base internationally.
This is where this fair comes in. Okay. I am here to plead to, developers here to come to the US and the legit ones, those who want to do business with Ghanaians for a very long time to come.
The event came to an end with the fair scheduled to take place from 11th to 13th October.
It starts October 11th, 12th, and then we end on the 13th. But high foot traffic, okay, because that's basically what most developers want. They want to meet people, they want to interact and make sure they get business out of it, okay. And we out there will be happy to see the developers come because we know that we're buying our houses from good sources and we are getting loans so that it doesn't have to take you maybe 10 to 15 years to buy a house or build a house.
Well, it's been great spending the past few minutes with you here on The Pulse. My name is Faustina Safo. For more news, please log on to myjoyonline.com. Have a pleasant afternoon as you enjoy the rest of our programs.